We loved it. It was always in the background. We heard music from Paragon. We heard the announcer at the mini golf course constantly, but the biggest thing you heard was the screeching of the roller coaster and the screaming from the roller coaster. And I swear that my mom still lives there, and I swear if you stand in her backyard and the wind is just right, you can still hear it some days. It's a memory that I think people call, the soundtrack of your life, and that growing up in Hull, a lot of people had that memory of hearing the sights, the sounds, and then when they went there, the smells. It puts you in a certain place, and it really meant summer. I was there all my life. I was born there. I lived in Hull until I was 30, and so Paragon was there until I was about 14, and my grandfather worked there, my brothers worked there, my uncles worked there, cousins worked there, everyone in the family worked there because that's what you did when you grew up in Hull. And I didn't because I was just too young. I worked in the arcades out front and actually met my wife there, so there's a little bit of, I'm sure a lot of people have that same story, remembering that summer is something that they remember a lot, but also some life events happened there too. And my grandfather worked there most of his life, and he was the one who told me the stories, and we lived right behind it, and I wanted to sort of record his stories and keep that memory alive. My grandfather's name was Frank Infusino. He grew up in Hingham at West Corner and was a Hull police officer for many years. And that was the era when the head of the household worked two jobs. He was a Hull police officer, and he worked at Paragon during the day, worked the midnight to 8 shift as a police officer at night. So he was one of the guys that, it's funny, he was a very modest guy, but he liked to tell the stories and share what he remembered. So I found a lot out about him just by talking to others. And one of the great stories is there was a certain group of people, a certain group of guys, men, who worked on the roller coaster, and he was one of them. And we have some great photos that were taken over the years of he and a guy named Harold Brothers, who was a good friend of his, who lived up the street, working on the top hill of the roller coaster. And you can see behind it, actually you can see our house behind it, which is kind of neat. Those guys were called the Untouchables by Larry Stone, who owned the park, because they were fearless. They went up and walked the tracks in the mornings, they ran the test cars, they did it all. And those were some stories he told, but you kind of get a different picture when you talk to other people who worked with him and who shared with him those types of things. The other thing about my grandfather that is poignant to me, at least, is that Paragon closed for the final time in 1984. We didn't know that it was the final season. It was sold over the winter, and then it never reopened. My grandfather was sick during that time, and he was at home, and he would walk down every day to where the roller coaster was being taken down and just sit on a bench and watch them as they took it down. And to me, that was really sad in a lot of ways, because he was at the end of his life. He knew that, and this place that was a part of his life for so long also was. He really was, the guy that inspired me by just talking about what he remembered.